Yeehaw! Trucks, trucks, and more trucks. Known for reliability, rugged good looks, and room in the back. Well, not these terrible trucks.
Oh, crap.
That's right, I'm gonna show you 8 trucks that ain't rugged, are hard to look at, and will leave you stranded. And guess what? You need to avoid these trucks at all costs. So if you're new here, my name is Brad Danger. Make sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. And it's so good to see you again. Let's go. Okay, I can see you looking at my sunglasses, and you're probably wondering, what are those incredible shades? Well, they're actually Dylan Optics, and I love wearing them when I'm driving, filming, and even just hanging out around the house. And guess what? They have a huge selection of eyewear. So if you're interested in looking as cool as me, go check out the link in the description for Dylan Optics. Because even the best cars and trucks, like the Tacoma, the Mustang, or even the Camaro, have bad years. And America's best-selling truck, well, it's no exception. The F-150 is always the answer. And well, unless you're talking about the 04 and 05. The 04 and 05 years of the F-150 they missed the mark. And owners of those years have noted a lot of failures. And I don't know about you, but to me, it seemed like the engine was just plagued with catastrophic issues. And sometimes the spark plugs would just break right off. And that just shouldn't happen ever. And so I gotta ask you guys, let's make a pact and never, ever, ever, and ever buy a 04 or 05 Ford F-150. They are just problematic any way that you look at it. And luckily, Ford learned from their mistakes, and so they addressed a ton of the issues, and so buying a Ford F-150 after 05 is a much more ideal truck. And another truck that you need to stay away from is from a brand that you'd never expect.
What do you have to do to kill one?
Yep, that's right. One of Toyota's trucks missed the mark, big time. And this one was a real dud. Of course, I'm talking about the 2007 Toyota Tundra. The Tundra hit American shores in the year 2000. And it being a Toyota, you'd assume that it was a great truck. And guess what? It actually was. And it's so good, in fact, that it's been around for nearly 20 years and it's only had one facelift. That's less than Pamela Anderson. But here's the problem with that facelift on the Tundra, is that it happened in 2007. And oh boy, did Toyota really miss the mark. So much, in fact, that it is now considered the worst Toyota ever built. Unless you know of one that's even worse, let us know down in the comments.
Well, but the car that I reserve a special level of hatred for is the Toyota Prius.
Not only is it extremely ugly, it's so bland and round, with a giant nose and those sad little headlights. It just doesn't look like a badass pickup truck at all. And yeah, I know some of you guys can get past those boring looks. I know we've all made mistakes, but that first year of the second gen was ready to hit you with all kinds of problems. See, right from the factory, the 07 Tundras had recalls for failing propeller shafts, power window switches that straight up melted and caused fires, and the infamous gas pedal that would get stuck and, well, you know, you were just along for the ride. That's right, the 07 Tundra was so bad, it might have actually killed you. So yeah, if you value your life at all, you might wanna just skip right past this terrible truck and get yourself into a newer Tundra. Yeah, it's gonna cost you a little bit more money, but it's definitely a better truck. And a newer Tundra is way better than this next truck on this list, the Chevy Avalanche. Whew. It's kind of ironic that this thing was named the Avalanche, because the problems with the Avalanche, they started slowly, but then things went downhill fast. It all started with their windshield wiper motors catching on fire, and that alone affected over 1 million avalanches. And as more people logged more miles, there were more problems. From dashes cracking to excessive oil consumption. All of these led to costly repairs totaling thousands of dollars. And while the 2007 Avalanche was the worst of the worst, is there a theme here with 2007? I'd also recommend staying away from the 2002 to 2005 models, because these things had a speedometer problem that affected pretty much all of the trucks. And so even when these owners were following the speed limit, they'd get pulled over because, well, they were going faster than they thought they were. And like I said, these things had a ton of issues, and that was just the tip of the iceberg, as more and more problems kept associating themselves with this truck. And it was such a headache for GM that they ended up discontinuing the model in 2013. So yeah, the Avalanche was definitely weird and confused, but what happens when a manufacturer takes a good truck and updates it to a worse standard than it was prior? It doesn't sell, duh. And this is exactly what happened to the Dodge Dakota in 2005. See, the redesign of the Dodge Dakota in 2005 was not well received. Like, at all, as customers didn't feel as though the original design needed much changing. And of course, Dodge doing their dodgy things, they did it anyway. And because of this, very few of their trucks actually ever sold. And the customers that did take the risk and bought one, they almost instantaneously regretted it, because these things would break down more often than they were running. While many owners reported a ton of failures having to do with most components on the truck, one of the more eye-opening issues was the fact that these engines were throwing rods through the block. That repair was over $6,000. Yikes! So not only was the redesign not liked, it also proved unreliable. So this goes back to that age-old question. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Come on, Dodge. And that really is unfortunate, because the pre-2005 Dakota was actually a pretty good truck. So it's safe to say redesigning a good truck didn't really work out for Dodge. But what happens when a brand like Lincoln decides to make an upscale truck? Well, you get the Lincoln Blackwood. Have you ever heard of an upscale truck? Yeah, me neither. Especially one with barn doors in the back? Yeah, me neither. Trucks are supposed to get dirty, bad gas mileage, and just straight up thrashed. Ooh, I don't know if that's gonna buff out. But for some reason, the guys over at Lincoln, they wanted to give their own little spin on the standard F-150. And I'm not gonna lie, it's actually pretty cool, because this truck comes as a standard four-door with a trunk instead of a bed, which is weird, but I guess it sort of works. In the trunk, they carpeted it and put a useless tonneau cover over it. So yeah, you couldn't carry much. And if you convinced yourself to get over the bed, I bet you couldn't get over that price tag, because it started at $53,000, which if you take into account inflation in today's money, that is over $70,000 US. What? For a truck, and a confused one at that? Luckily, these things came pretty much fully loaded, and you can get them in any color you want as long as it was black. And I got to admit, they did look pretty cool. I mean, just look at the black with the aluminum pinstripes over artificial black burled wood. And these trucks were filled with technology. But unfortunately, that tech has been known to go out quite frequently. And as far as the power plant goes, a lot of these trucks, once they hit over 6 figures on the odometer, started having some cylinder head issues. And to fix that, you'd have to fork over $6,000. Ouch. And so you probably already guessed it, because you probably haven't seen one on the road in a while or ever. All of these unlikable features led to very poor sales figures. And try not to laugh, because Lincoln only sold, wait for it, 3,356 total units. What? That's about as many cars as GM produces daily. And that's how many Blackwoods were sold over the only 15-month model year run. Because after 15 months, Ford pulled the plug. I don't blame them. Although the Lincoln Blackwood was made for those with money and class, but what happens when a manufacturer makes a cheap truck? You know, for those people that probably can't afford a truck. Well, you get the Ford Ranger. And while most years the truck isn't all that bad, there's one year that Ford would love to forget, 1997. While Ford has a really good reputation, even for the Ford Ranger, 1997 was a difficult year for their midsize pickup truck. See, specifically that year, the truck was riddled with problem after problem. Solenoid failures, the loss of gears, an upshifting failure, reverse would go out, and an extremely delayed gear shifting response. And those are just some of the common ones. And each and every one was extremely costly. In fact, so much so that most owners just wanted to cut their losses. And it was so bad that if you were to get one of these failures, there's a good chance that the insurance company would just write it off for you. And I feel for these 1997 Ranger owners because they had to deal with all of this. And on top of this, Ford had to recall their tires because the truck's tread would separate at speed. And all this led to multiple fatal crashes. Oh, and did I mention that that affected 14 million trucks? Yeah, that's million with an M. Whew. So I guess it would be easy to say that most of these owners regretted their purchase. And I probably would too. So just stay away from the 97 Ranger and you'll be good. And if you need something bigger, something badder, because the Ranger's just a little bit too small, okay, it's way too small, then you're gonna have to step up into some heavy duty trucks. But you're gonna wanna stay away from the Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500. New or old, stay away from these trucks. In fact, they are so bad that they've been called the least reliable vehicle money can buy. It is so bad that it makes me think that the E60 M5 is actually a really good buy. And it's not. It's one of the worst cars ever. Well, except that it's a supercar sedan with a V10 that sounds like an F1, but another story for another day. And here's the problem. They've been enticing customers for years because the styling of these trucks, they're just beautiful. Yet when it came to the bread and butter of these trucks, these things just had problem after problem, which is a theme here. Specifically, they had issues with their suspension, transmissions, fuel systems, and even their steering. And that's just the common issues. These trucks were also prone to rust, and these things rusted bad, like real bad. In fact, rust issues could come up as early as 15,000 miles of ownership, which means that this truck would be less than a year old and already showing signs of rust. And that's definitely not ideal. And I get it. People that usually buy these rigs are either Mopar or no car. And even if you're this way, please, please, please just stay away from the Dodge Ram 25 and 3500. Is it just me, or are there a lot of American trucks on this list? Come on, America, step it up. Make something solid, reliable, like the Japanese. But don't make anything like the second gen Nissan Frontier. The 2006 Frontier was struggling from the very start. A good sign for any vehicle is, how many recalls does it have? 1 or 2 is pretty normal, but we're talking about the Nissan Frontier. And the 2006 model had 7, yes, 7 recalls. And that's because problems occurred all over this truck. From the fuel tank leaking and causing trucks to run out of gas, to something as simple as salt on the roads ruining the front airbag sensors. And as you can probably imagine, this made the airbags not work, and so when there was an accident, the front airbags wouldn't even deploy. Talk about a false sense of security. That definitely doesn't sound ideal, and there were 5 more recalls. This truck was so bad, in fact, that people that designed and manufactured this truck said that it wasn't even safe enough to use every single day. What? And even those people that didn't use their truck every single day experienced these same problems. And that was the nail in the coffin for the 2006 Nissan Frontier. And the amount of issues tarnished its reputation for decades to come. I don't even think they've come back from it yet. And while some trucks are dependable, some just don't make the cut. So you tell me, which trucks did we leave out that we need to warn other buyers about? Let us know down in the comments, because me and the team will be there for the first few hours after we release this video and hang out with you guys. And if you liked this video, hit the like button. If you disliked it, don't hit the dislike button just once, hit it twice. Really let us know that you mean it. And my name is Brad Danger. If you're new here, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and check out some of our other Ideal content. And as always, keep living the ideal lifestyle.